A day in the life of a Russian emperor. The Russian Empire ruled a good part of the world in the 19th century. The Tsar was more than a ruler. He did not answer to human laws, only to God. So how did the messengers of God manage their days? Their routine depended on the time of year. They lived in the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg during winter. In the summer, they'd move to Tsarskoye Selo or Petergov. Nicholas I. Nicholas was a role model for his descendants. He had a big responsibility. Nicholas trusted nobody. He double-checked everything himself. His mornings began early. Nicholas washed at 7 a.m. A daily medical checkup followed. By 8 a.m., Nikolai was ready to have tea with pickles. That was his quirk. Then he'd listen to the reports about the situation in the country. Afterward, he'd take his daily stroll through the streets of St. Petersburg. Occasionally, he'd meet up with acquaintances. They would walk and talk about all kinds of subjects. The Tsar would be back from his walk before 1:30 p.m. He sat down to do the paperwork. It took about 2 to 3 hours. Then, Nicholas checked on the state institutions. He could go into any department. The officials were scared to death of the Tsar's visit. He would return home by 4 p.m. Nicholas had tea and lunch with his family. He'd be back at work on his documents by 5 p.m. He worked until 7 p.m. Then the Tsar would visit the theater. If there was no exciting performance, he'd meet with foreign diplomats. After that, he would sit back down to finish his papers. Nicholas worked until late at night. At 2 a.m., he prayed and went to bed. Sometimes the emperor fell asleep at his desk. Alexander II, he was raised to be an emperor from a very early age. As a young man, Alexander was very romantic. He even fell in love with the young Queen Victoria. When Alexander became emperor, his routine immediately changed. He woke up later than his father. His day began at 9 a.m. with breakfast. By 10 a.m., he was waiting for his ministers to report. From 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., the emperor did paperwork. Alexander was always busy, even while traveling. He would take his papers with him. The time for social activities started after 7 p.m. It included theater, balls, and masquerades. Nicholas II. The weight of duties fell on Nicholas II out of the blue. His father died at the age of 49. The cause was heart hypertrophy. Nicholas became emperor at 26 years old. He got up at 8:30. Then at 9 a.m., he had breakfast. He simply adored tea. The next 30 minutes were spent walking. By 10 a.m., the ministers came in for their reports. They occupied about an hour of his time. For the next 2 hours, Nicholas hosted petitioners. After lunch, he had tea with friends or family. An obligatory half-hour walk with the children followed. Afterward, Nicholas sat down for an hour of paperwork. There was a formal dinner at 9 p.m. The emperor spent the rest of his time as he pleased.